Sarajevo, Bosnia. June 28, 1914. A 19-year-old boy is standing outside a deli. He has just eaten a sandwich. He had given up. The assassination attempt he had spent months planning had already failed that morning. His co-conspirators had thrown a bomb at the Archduke's motorcade and missed. The Archduke was alive. The attempt was over. Gavrilo Princip was done. He was standing outside Schiller's deli wondering what to do next. Then something happened that no historian has ever fully been able to explain. The Archduke's driver made a wrong turn. He turned directly onto the street where Princip was standing. The car slowed to a stop 5 feet away from the 19-year-old boy who had just given up. Princip pulled out his pistol. He fired twice. Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were dead within the hour. And the chain of events that followed those two shots killed 17 million people, collapsed 4 empires, redrew the map of the entire world, and created the conditions that produced Adolf Hitler and World War II. All because a driver made a wrong turn. To understand why a 19-year-old boy was standing outside a deli in Sarajevo with a pistol, you first have to understand who Gavrilo Princip was and what had made him. Gavrilo Princip was born on July 25, 1894, in a small village in Bosnia. He was the second of 9 children born to a poor farming family. 6 of his siblings died in infancy. He grew up in poverty in a region that was seething with political tension. Bosnia in 1894 was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, an empire that ruled over many different peoples, Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, Bosniaks, who had their own languages, their own histories, their own identities, and who increasingly resented being ruled by Vienna. Princip was a Bosnian Serb. He grew up hearing stories of Serbian history and Serbian national pride. He read radical political pamphlets. He was drawn to the idea of a unified South Slav state, Yugoslavia, free from Austro-Hungarian control. He was small and thin and sickly. He had been rejected by the Serbian military for being too small and too weak. He was not a warrior. He was a true believer, and true believers with nothing to lose are the most dangerous people in history. By 1913, Gavrilo Princip had connected with a secret nationalist organization called the Black Hand. The Black Hand was a Serbian secret society dedicated to the unification of South Slav peoples under Serbian leadership. It had connections to the Serbian military and government at the highest levels. It was also extremely good at convincing idealistic young men that dying for their cause was not only acceptable but glorious. Princip and a small group of co-conspirators were recruited for a mission. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was going to visit Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. June 28 was not a random date. It was Vidovdan, St. Vitus Day, the most sacred date in Serbian history. The anniversary of the Battle of Kosovo in 1389 when Serbian forces were defeated by the Ottoman Empire. Choosing that date for the Archduke's visit to Bosnia was, whether intentional or not, an enormous provocation to Serbian nationalists. Princip and his co-conspirators were given weapons, pistols, grenades, and cyanide capsules to take after completing their mission so they could not be captured and forced to reveal the network behind them. They were teenagers. The oldest was 27. The assassination plan fell apart almost immediately. The first conspirator along the route lost his nerve when the moment came and did nothing. The second conspirator, Nedeljko Kabrinovic, threw a grenade at the Archduke's open-topped car as it passed. He missed. The grenade bounced off the folded-back convertible roof of the car and exploded under the following vehicle. Several people in the following car were injured. The Archduke was not hit. Kabrinovic swallowed his cyanide capsule and jumped into the nearby Miljacka River. The cyanide made him vomit. The river was only 4 inches deep. He was pulled out by the crowd and arrested. The motorcade sped up and rushed to its destination, the town hall, to complete the official visit. The remaining conspirators along the route were thrown into confusion. The plan was in chaos. The Archduke had survived. Gavrilo Princip decided it was over. He walked away from his position and went to Schiller's deli on Franz Joseph Street. He ordered something to eat. He stood outside eating it. He had no idea what was about to happen. Meanwhile, at the town hall, the Archduke's official visit was in chaos. Franz Ferdinand was furious about the assassination attempt. He wanted to visit the people injured in the grenade blast at the hospital before leaving Sarajevo. His route was changed. His motorcade set off again through Sarajevo, but nobody told the driver about the route change. The driver turned onto Franz Joseph Street, the original planned route, by mistake. When the lead car in the motorcade realized the error, it stopped. The Archduke's car stopped directly in front of Schiller's deli. 5 feet from Gavrilo Princip, the general in the car told the driver he had taken the wrong turn and needed to reverse. The driver put the car into reverse. The engine stalled. For approximately 30 seconds, the most important car in the Austro-Hungarian Empire sat completely stationary 5 feet from the teenager who had just given up on assassinating its occupant. Princip stepped forward. He raised his pistol. He fired once at Franz Ferdinand. He fired once at the general sitting beside the Archduke. The bullet meant for the general missed and hit Archduke Franz Ferdinand's wife Sophie instead. Both the Archduke and Sophie died of their wounds within the hour. 30 seconds. A wrong turn. A stalled engine. 17 million people dead. What happened after those 2 shots is one of the most studied chain reactions in history, and one of the most frightening examples of how quickly a world can fall apart. Austria-Hungary blames Serbia for the assassination, correctly suspecting Serbian nationalist involvement. On July 23, 1914, Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum to Serbia. The demands were so extreme that they were designed to be rejected. Serbia rejected 2 of the demands. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. Russia, Serbia's ally and protector of Slavic peoples, began mobilizing its military. Germany, Austria-Hungary's ally, declared war on Russia on August 1, 1914. France, Russia's ally, was drawn in. Germany declared war on France and invaded Belgium to get there faster. Britain, which had a treaty guaranteeing Belgian neutrality, declared war on Germany on August 4, 1914. Within 6 weeks of 2 shots fired on a Sarajevo street, the major powers of Europe were at war. By the time it ended 4 years later, 17 million people were dead. 4 empires had collapsed. The map of the world had been redrawn, and the conditions that produced Adolf Hitler and World War II had been created. All of it from a wrong turn. Gavrilo Princip tried to take his cyanide capsule after firing the shots. It made him vomit. Just like his co-conspirator Kabrinovic, he tried to turn the pistol on himself. The crowd grabbed him before he could. He was arrested, tried, convicted of murder and conspiracy. Under Austro-Hungarian law, Princip could not be executed. He was 27 days short of his 20th birthday when he fired the shots. The law at the time stated that those under 20 could not receive the death penalty. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He was taken to Theresienstadt Fortress in what is now the Czech Republic. His cell was cold and damp. He developed tuberculosis. His arm was amputated due to disease. He spent the entire World War I in that fortress, the war that his 2 shots had started. He could hear the artillery in the distance on the worst days. He died in that cell on April 28, 1918. He was 23 years old. He had started a war that was still going when he died. He never saw how it ended. The question that historians have debated for over a century is what Gavrilo Princip actually thought he was doing when he fired those 2 shots. He was not trying to start World War I. He was not trying to kill 17 million people. He was trying to strike a blow for South Slav liberation from Austro-Hungarian rule. He believed with the passionate certainty of a 19-year-old political idealist that killing the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne would destabilize the empire and advance the cause of a unified South Slav state. He later said in prison, "I am not a criminal because I did away with one who was doing evil. Austria as it was had to die." He also said something that is far more haunting. When a journalist visited him in prison and told him about the scale of the war he had started, Princip reportedly wept. He said, "I did not want a world war. I did not know it would lead to this." He was a 19-year-old boy who thought he was a revolutionary. He became the accidental architect of the most destructive war in history up to that point. The gap between what he intended and what he caused is one of the most sobering lessons in the entire history of political violence. Here's the connection that most history classes never make clearly enough. World War I did not just kill 17 million people. It created the conditions for World War II. The Treaty of Versailles that ended World War I in 1919 imposed devastating terms on defeated Germany. Massive war reparations, territorial losses, a war guilt clause that blamed Germany entirely for the conflict. Germany was humiliated, economically devastated, politically unstable. Into that instability stepped Adolf Hitler, a failed artist who had served in World War I and come home to a Germany that felt betrayed and destroyed. Hitler's entire political rise was built on the resentment and humiliation that the Treaty of Versailles had created. Without World War I, there is no Treaty of Versailles. Without the Treaty of Versailles, there is no Hitler. Without Hitler, there is no World War II. Without World War II, there is no Holocaust. 60 million people died in World War II. 6 million Jewish people were murdered in the Holocaust. All of it traceable. through a chain of causes and consequences back to a driver making a wrong turn on Franz Josef Street in Sarajevo, and a 19-year-old boy eating a sandwich outside a deli. Here is the power play and twisted truth at the heart of this story. The most consequential political assassination in human history was almost entirely accidental. The plan failed. The main conspirators were scattered. The target survived the first attempt. The assassin gave up and went to get something to eat. And then a driver made a wrong turn. That is the power play. A 19-year-old boy with a pistol and a failed plan accidentally triggered the chain of events that killed 77 million people across 2 world wars. The twisted truth is this. Gavrilo Princip did not change history. A wrong turn did. Princip was just standing in the right place when it happened. Or the wrong place, depending on how you look at it. The most sobering lesson of Gavrilo Princip's story is not about political violence or nationalism or the dangers of secret societies. It is about something far more unsettling. How close history always is to going a different way. If the driver had not made that wrong turn, if the engine had not stalled, if Princip had been standing 30 feet further down the street. No World War I. No Treaty of Versailles. No Hitler. No World War II. No Holocaust. 77 million people who died might have lived because of a wrong turn. Gavrilo Princip died in his prison cell on April 28, 1918. He was 23 years old. The war he had started was still going. He never knew how it ended. He never knew about the Treaty of Versailles. He never knew about Adolf Hitler. He never knew about World War II. He never knew about the Holocaust. He died in a cold, damp cell with tuberculosis and one arm, having heard the distant artillery of the war his 2 shots had started. History has never quite decided what to do with Gavrilo Princip. In Serbia and Bosnia, he is remembered by some as a hero of South Slav liberation. Streets and schools have been named after him. In the rest of the world, he is remembered as the young man who accidentally started the bloodiest series of wars in human history. Both of those things are true. History's Wildside is about power plays and twisted truths. And here is the final twisted truth of Gavrilo Princip's story. He was a 19-year-old boy who wanted to change his corner of the world. He changed all of it, not through brilliance, not through planning, not through the rightness of his cause. Through a wrong turn, and a stalled engine, and 30 seconds. The most important lesson of Gavrilo Princip's story is not about what he did. It is about how fragile history always is, how close every moment is to going differently, how the entire course of human civilization can turn on a driver making a mistake. Subscribe to History's Wildside for a new story every Sunday, power plays, twisted truths, and the moments that history almost forgot. This has been History's Wildside. I will see you next Sunday.